Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you had a lovely lunch. I'd like to quickly thank some more sponsors that helped make today possible, in particular Blackburn Radio and CTN. A big thank you to those guys. It is now my pleasure to introduce you to Valerie Geller, our next speaker of the day. Valerie's latest book, by the way, is Beyond Powerful Radio, and it is free. Since we're all radio people, if you'd like to listen to it, it is free through Audible. Now, Valerie is the president of Geller Media, which is International Broadcast Consultants. She's worked with hundreds of stations around the world, including stations owned by ABC, CBS, NPR, Bloomberg, iHeart, Chorus, Rogers, CBC, and many more. She is the expert on how to grow an audience with compelling content, how to keep an audience entertained, and how to keep them engaged. So right now, we're going to put her to the test. Here is Valerie Geller.
Thank you. Thank you, and it is great to be back in Canada. Quite frankly, as an American, it's really great to be in Canada, where life feels sane, where they're not dismantling democracy, and where things feel normal. People follow the rules. I was ready to kiss the ground in Canada, and never have I appreciated being in Canada more than I do today. So thank you, and thank you for having me here. Thank you to Morav, and thank you to Val Skeffington for putting on this amazing conference, Chris Burns for inviting me. I really am honored and appreciate it. Now, there are a few of you in the room, and some of you who I've known for a very long time, and it's wonderful. I sat with a gentleman from Kitchener at lunch who I originally had worked with 20 years ago, and it feels like yesterday. And he asked a question, is the message the same? And I said, yes, the message is the same because it doesn't change because it works. But what hasn't worked is when you don't move forward. And for those of you who've been here all day, you've been hearing people talk about the new world order that is audio, media, broadcasting, and basically the new world order of digital media. Our audiences have left just listening to radio and now get their media from many, many, many places. So it becomes more important than ever to engage with content. Personality matters more than ever. There are no boring stories, only boring storytellers, and nothing in this life is boring, nothing, if you're interested. And that is the core of the work I do. So, that being said, I want to give a nod to my colleague James Cridlin, who said the most beautiful thing today that will stay with me. The past is a different country. I have a friend who is going through cancer treatment right now. And when she went to the support group, the first thing they said was, you must grieve for your former self, but fully embrace who you are right now, or you will not survive. And that's pretty good advice for us in radio and television as well. Embrace the now. Embrace the opportunities that this amazing time in the world technologically is giving to us. But at core, each person in the room, you are in the story business. Holding up a mirror reflecting life, informing, entertaining, inspiring, persuading, and most importantly, if you understand what it feels like to be alone. And suddenly you push a button and you're not alone anymore. That's the gift we give in our media. That's it. And that's why people come. So again, what I'd like to do is start with the core message, which again, in the entire time I've been doing this work, has never, ever changed. Tell the truth, make it matter, and never be boring. Okay, what's the truth? The facts? Well, there's lots of sides to lots of stories, and we're learning more and more every day that truth can be very volatile, depending on who's telling it. So it becomes more important than ever to get your facts right, and also, are you truthfully, authentically interested in what it is you're talking about? Because one of the things that's come up in research time and time again, and particularly for commercial radio, but public radio as well, Listeners love it when they forget the radio is on and they just feel like they're in the room with you. Listeners hate it when it sounds like, and now another topic manufactured to fill a spot on my radio show. If it sounds fake or manufactured or forced, it does not work as well as when it's authentic and genuine. So part of the truth and asking yourself when you're creating content of any kind, how is it relevant? How do you care? How does it matter? And these things are really important now more than ever. The attention span you get is about 3 seconds if someone's bored. And think about it, when you're flipping around on a radio and something's boring to you, how fast is your finger? And the audience is probably double that speed because you're in the business and you're giving things a chance. So again, understand you have 2 seconds. Never put anything on the air that doesn't stand up to the question, why should I listen to this? Or follow the statement, here's why you need to listen to this. And then whatever you say next should be your opener. Whether it's a commercial, whether it's a bit, whether it's a talk show, whether it's public service, whatever you're doing, it needs to hold up to, why should I listen? Or here's why you need to listen to this. Make it matter. And the last thing is never be boring. Now, how do you know if something's boring? To quote Werner Erhard from Est from the 70s, interested is interesting, bored is boring. If you are bored, I guarantee you what's coming out of your mouth or what's coming out of the speaker is boring if you are bored. However, interested is interesting, and that's the secret of life. That's the secret sauce: curiosity, interest, passion. And blessedly, most broadcasters have a very wide range of interests, as do journalists. They're interested in people and life, and they like to have fun, and they're smart. And these are all core and wonderful qualities, and we look for them, and we encourage them, and we grow them. So again, never be boring. How do you know if something's boring? There's really only one way: if it feels long. If you're on air and you have an out-of-body experience, it's boring. Trust it. When something's in power, really in power, 5 minutes can feel like 1. When something's out of power, 1 minute can feel like 5. You have to suspend logic because radio is magic. It's just alchemy. When it works, it's amazing. And what we want to do is give you the tools that you can go back to your stations and give them to everyone you work with so that the opportunity for the magic is there. And when there's magic and when there's a unique opportunity to hear something you cannot get elsewhere, that's when it works. How many people in the room have heard a piece of music or watched something on YouTube in the past 21 days that they could not have gotten on radio? Okay. We are not delivering to our audience everything they want and need. So, new artists, new ideas, taking chances. Being too predictable is also boring. And that's something that all of you know. In relationships, Match.com did a survey, and they asked people who had been married 30 or 40 years, what kept the marriage alive? What kept the relationship new? Every single person said, he or she either makes me laugh or he or she still surprises me. It was the surprise, the not being so predictable. That's what kept it alive. And that's part of not being boring. When was the last time you completely surprised your listeners and they had the radio on and they went, whoa, I can't believe they're talking about that or they're doing that. This is amazing, this is fun. And a radio station has a relationship with each listener. And sometimes we forget that. We get so focused on the money and the promotion and ratings that you forget what this means to one person alone in a room or alone in a car. Radio can survive, but radio is now going to live side by side with many other mediums. We have to fight for our place in the sun, and we have to be better. And it's going to be hard work. but it's totally doable because we have talent. And developing and growing talent is your arsenal of how you can engage. So this is the core message. Tell the truth, make it matter, never be boring, and it never changes, because this always works. If you do these things, you will get, keep, and grow audiences. And it's really not more complicated than that. The books I've written, and there are now 5 of them, I'm working now on a 6th one, have gone around the world. And it's not because they're American ideas or North American ideas, it's because they're human ideas about connection and community and people and how to be a more powerful communicator. And it cuts across every single language and every single culture, because it has nothing to do with radio and nothing to do other than with being human and trying to get what's inside your mind into the mind of somebody else and do it in a way that will engage them. This is where it starts. And I think we've heard a lot today about radio hasn't done too much for the younger generation. We didn't really care about them. We didn't pay attention to them because they didn't have checkbooks. And now suddenly they're 25 and they have really very little to do with us because we ignored them. Don't make this mistake. Start fresh. Start today. Start now. What are you offering people who are coming up in this new generation? Here's what every single member of your audience wants, whether you do radio, television, or work online. Every single person who pushes the black button. They want to feel they matter, they want to be needed, and each person wants to make a difference in some way. How is your radio station or your programming helping people connect in with this? This is why people turn on a radio. They want to be informed, entertained, inspired, persuaded, and connected. Are you doing this with every minute of your programming? And be merciless. How is this entertaining? Is it funny? Is it making us laugh? Is the music riveting? Is the music moving a listener in some way, shape, or form, making them feel something? Is it new information? Is it powerful storytelling? Is it inspiring? Does it make you feel glad you live where you live? Is it persuading you? Certainly with commercials. We'd like you to try our products and services, please. Is this working to do that? Do your commercials answer the question, here's why you need to listen to this? And finally, connecting. Humans are tribal. Are you connecting your audience to tribe, to being part of something bigger than they are by themselves? Always ask what's in it for the listener or the viewer. How is it relevant? How does it matter? How does it matter to you? And how can you make the listener care? This is the model. And there are some people in the room who know this story and who are very dear to me. This model happened when I was working in Germany many years ago. When I was in Munich, the Germans said, what is the formula? What is the formula for creative process? And I said, well, you always know it when you hear it, when it works. And it became very clear to me very quickly that the Germans could not function unless we had a structure. Without a structure, nothing was going to happen and nothing was going to change. So that night, I sat up the entire night and put structure to what I knew from many years of being in broadcasting to be the formula for what I understood creative process to be. And it came out to be focus. What is your topic? What are you talking about? And that had a subset. What are people always interested in? Health and safety, money and power, emotion, and finally, how their lives can be better or different tomorrow than they are today because of something they're hearing that you are offering them. So it became health, heart, money, and transformation. Then was engage. What's in it for the listener or the viewer? Why should we listen? You're asking for the most valuable thing they have on the planet, which is their time. What are you doing to make it worth their time? What, if each listener comes to you with a bucket, what gold are you putting in each person's bucket? You're asking for their time. Opinion position. Now, in Germany and everywhere else in the world, I got called on the carpet because I work in news. I have a lot of news background. I've worked with Reuters, I've worked with the BBC, I've served on the board of directors of the Associated Press. I was working in Northern California in San Francisco as a news director for many years and as a reporter working for the Pulitzers. I have a deep, deep news background. I came out of print journalism. And they would sit there and scream, "What do you mean, opinion position?" Okay, here's the deal. If you do news, I never want to hear your opinion or position. I don't care if you work for Fox. I don't want to hear it. However, if you haven't thought about a story or an issue or a subject enough to have formed an opinion, you actually don't care. And if you don't care, how the hell are you going to make the audience care? You're faking. You're an actor playing the part of a news person. It's not real. Would you say it off air? Does it matter to you? Do you have an opinion about it? So if you do news and you haven't thought about an issue enough to have formed an opinion, you don't care, when in doubt, leave it out. It can't be that important because no one's going to hear it anyway. If you look at focus groups and you play them 5 minutes of news and you have talent that's disengaged. 43 people were killed today when a bus overturned at 5th and Main, but they're not engaged. It's not really storytelling. They listen to the 5 minutes and then you ask the focus group, what was the first story? They can't remember. Sometimes they can't even remember the weather. The storyteller matters. How you tell a story authentically matters now more than ever because of the short attention span and the other media we're competing with, more than ever. So opinion position, if you're on air as a personality, if you're John Derringer, yes, give us your opinion, but don't just tell us what you think. Tell us why. Give us your position. What happened to you in life that makes you think this way? It's not just opinion, it's position. What's the story behind your thinking this way? I had a guy in talk radio in America, gun control, big issue there, craziness. And he had been anti-gun. And then he and his wife took a holiday, and his mom stayed with the kids. And they got back, and his mom and the kids were tied up in the closet with duct tape on their hands, sitting in a pile of their own waste for 2.5 days because guys with guns had come in and robbed the house. And they were lucky they didn't get killed, and the kids were traumatized. And he went on air and said, "I will never live in a house without a gun." It's not, "I believe in gun control." It's now you understood what was going on in his head. Don't just tell me what you think. Tell me why you think what happened to you and how you got there. That's powerful communication. And finally, storytelling. What happened? Why did it happen? Where did it happen? When did it happen? Basic core storytelling. You are in the story business. Story is what content is. Every single speaker on this stage today has said the same thing. It's storytelling, no matter what. So again, cut to core. What is the story? The minute a listener says, "And then what happened?" you actually own them. You own them when they want to know what happened next. A lot of the podcasts that are really tracking, what happened next? Dirty John, a big one in LA Times, and Wondery produced it. The whole thing, what happened next? You had to find out. And the minute you ask that question, it's powerful. Story spine is something I write about in Beyond Powerful Radio. It comes from a guy who actually worked in improv theater, working with children. And his name is Ken Adams. And they use it a lot in commercials, but it's really a good exercise to teach storytelling. And you already know it. Once upon a time, and every day, until one day, and because of that, because of that, and because of that, until finally, and ever since that day. You can take any set of facts, whether it's for a commercial, a news story, or a prep piece that you're going to do on air, or for a talk show, and you can story spine it and train people to become better storytellers. What happened, where, why, who, how? What's different in 2018 going into 2019 is we still need all these things. Start with the what before the who. every journalist, every broadcaster, most people start with who said it or who it happened to. To make it more powerful, keep the who in, but don't put it up top. Okay? So it's not the police say, it's if you're on the road, watch out at this intersection. Police are there catching criminals. If you're reading off a press release, and this is one of my favorite examples because I did a workshop in the morning and in the afternoon I heard this on the air. The press release said, according to the press release, the museum was going to be closing the Picasso exhibit on the 15th. And instead of, according to a press release from the Museum of Modern Art, what went on the radio was, if you haven't seen the Picasso, you only have until Wednesday the 15th. Then it's closing. That's according to a press release from the museum. Start with what happened or what's in it for a listener rather than who is involved. And I guarantee you it will be more powerful. Put the who at the bottom. You still keep it in there. How questions? How does this affect the listener? How can you describe it more visually? Now, the power of the visual, I cannot emphasize it enough. I did some work with a brain researcher. They did a functional MRI, actually watching the brain work. And when they took the male subject and they gave him either a picture or enough verbal cues so that he could imagine what something looked like, the learning center in the male brain lit up yellow. It was amazing. We've always known men are visual, certainly sexually, but it turns out they're visual with everything. And so the more visual you are, the more you can describe things visually. Don't say beautiful sunset, say tangerine sky. Use your words to make a picture, and it will be more powerful. Radio is the imagination medium, and even television can be enhanced. And I judge a lot of awards, and I was judging the New York festivals, and one of the guys with the television was actually saying, what you're looking at behind me here is this, and he described it, and it was 10 times more powerful because he was actually helping you see what you were seeing. How many of you have gone to a game, a sporting event, and you see the guys with the radios listening to the play-by-play in their ear? It's because the announcers are enhancing the visual experience for the men. Now with women, and again, this stuff was about 80%. No research is ever 100%, and there are individuals who break out of these prototypes. But with women, when they gave the woman the pictures, nothing lit up. Women like the visual, men actually need the visual to learn. With women, it was emotion. If you could make her feel and touch her heart, the learning centers opened up, and that was the Mars Venus stuff right there. What's the worst question any man can be asked by a woman? What are you feeling? They're not wired up to answer that. They can do hot, cold, tired, awake, horny, hungry. They can do that. But there are whole symphonies of notes that women can hear that men cannot. And with men, if you can describe things visually, the male audience, the male half of the audience, will be able to hook into it and connect to it much more deeply. So knowing this stuff from the brain science, let's use it for radio because we have the data. Let's use it. And certainly songwriters have been doing this for years. Bob Dylan, To Dance Beneath a Diamond Sky with One Hand Waving Free. It's a movie. Songwriters forever speak and write visually, and they paint the pictures and they put you right in there, what they're talking about and in their story. The more you can put the viewer or the listener in your story, the better it's going to work. I worked with a reporter at the BBC. She'd been BBC trained and sounded very generic. After a workshop, she did a story that started out, as you walk along Maplethorpe and you look to the left, you see the washing hanging on the lines. You see roses and picket fences. You'd never know, at 1835 Maplethorpe, terrorists were arrested. They were going to bomb the tube station today. Put you in the movie. Never be boring. Make it matter. Tell me a story. If you can do these things, you will get, keep, and grow audiences, and they won't care if they're watching it on YouTube, hearing it on podcasting, hearing it over your airwaves, or quite frankly, getting it through the fillings in their teeth. They don't care. They're hungry for story. Nourish the story beast. You can never give them enough stories. They want more. You have an insatiable audience. Okay? So, how do you care? How can you make somebody care? How come you're putting the story on the radio? If a problem is presented, what is the solution? One of the reasons why people tune out public radio and news talk, it's either boring or it's too depressing. Well, boring, we know what to do with. Make it matter, use the word you, engage the listener, make it visual, tell a powerful story. But what do you do with depressing? When you have a listener that says the world is going to hell in a handbasket, you can't drink the water, you can't eat the tuna, there's global warming, on and on and on. What do? Well, if it's problem, and you're hitting up your audience with a tsunami of crap stories, they're going to just turn on the music. And if they don't like the music, they're going to turn it off and do what they want. But if you present problem and then present solution, even perceived solution, that can lift your audience. And that's one way we've been working with public radio and commercial radio around the world for spoken word to try to keep audiences staying longer. And it really works, even if it's perceived solution. The most amazing thing, even something like police are investigating, okay, somebody somewhere is doing something. That's cool, okay, I can keep going with it. As long as it's not that feeling of, do you guys, are there people in the room old enough to remember Monty Python's Flying Circus? Do you remember that? Okay, not a lot, but a few. They used to have this big foot that would come down and mash everything flat when it got boring or when they were done with something, to use it as a transitioner. And when you do crap story, it's like the Monty Python foot that comes down. You're literally smashing your audience flat and off they go. They don't stay. So again, we want to engage, never lose a listener. From this day forward, make it your mantra to get, keep, and grow audiences. Always offer them something. Okay, if something happened that was bad, could it have been prevented? How else would you tell the story? How would you tell it to a friend? How could you make it better? How would you tell this story if your life depended on not losing a listener? And finally, would you put this on a demo if you needed another job? The power of you. You is the most powerful word in the English language. We are so lucky. Is anybody in here a French broadcaster? Anyone broadcasting in French? Okay. If you work in English, you've got this gift. The word you means talking to the individual, but also the group. And the minute you say the word you on the radio, you're calling your audience by name. Same with television. Have you ever, can you imagine, if you were standing here looking at, here's what you would see. The minute you use the word you, certainly artists know this. I mean, we have Neil Dixon in the room, Liz Janik, a lot of people who work deeply with music content. Most of the most powerful songs have the word you in it. Or the audience feels that the singer is singing directly to him or her. And that's the essence of using the word you. You're having a conversation. It's counterintuitive because we'll be right back, because logically that's you and I together. But that's never as good as up next you'll hear. We have 5 tickets to give away. That's never as good as you have 5 chances to win. So again, the more you use the word you, the more powerful it is, and you can never say the word you too many times. Prep. What are you doing that is unique? Are you using your own life? Are you using the lives of the people in the building? Are you using the lives of the people that you know to get your stories and your content and your promotion ideas? Hold up a mirror, reflect life, and that means something that happened to you, something maybe from the news that you would normally talk about if you didn't have a radio show, something you've overheard or observed. Add it in to what goes on the radio for promotion ideas, commercial ideas, and also just plain old content. Air checking. Now I know Paul Kay has a full-time job with Rogers just working with talent and air checking. Air checking is vital. Without, every other business in the world has a system where they look at how well their employees are doing and try to help them become better. Radio, we throw them in the tank and just hope for the best. Air checking is really important, and it's important to do it with a criteria so that it's not, I think it's great, you think it's crap. You know, it's not subjective. You can actually boil it down and make it very, very objective Was it boring? Did it feel like it went too long? Was it fun for the audience? Was it just fun in the booth and you guys were laughing and scratching, but the audience had their noses pressed against the glass watching other people have fun, or were they engaged? One of the things that I do with all the stations I work with is we take an empty chair and we put a sign on the chair that says, "This is not a chair. This is your listener, and his name is you. And by the way, he's blind, so you have to describe everything visually. Talk to the chair." And the minute we do that, it changes how the radio is, the broadcast itself. Was anything funny? Nothing worse than forced humor, nothing better than when it naturally happens. You know, it's just amazing. What were the visuals? If you close your eyes, what could you see out of what somebody talked about today on the air? John Derringer had a great moment this morning here in Toronto on Q107. Ryan and Jennifer and John were on the air talking about the fact that they were going to be here announcing the luncheon awards. Did anybody listen to it this morning? Okay. Derringer said, well, he really hates these things, you know, these big, huge luncheons with all these industry people. He would just rather not deal with it. And Ryan says, well, what if I need to be rescued? And John says, I'll take the car and I'll just come get you. And then he goes, but they usually have those planners and we'll just hit the planners in the front. And he made such a movie and it was so fun. And it really gave me, again, the spirit of taking something that you can only get from listening to that guy today, this moment, on that radio station, and he made a movie in your head of what it was that, what his story was. What was the talkable topic? What's the thing that when people turn the radio off, they're going to talk to each other about? Giving your audience show prep for their lives and their day is important. You know, most people don't have scintillating lives. They're getting through, they're getting by. And if they can get ideas or stories they can tell one another and make each of them more interesting to the people they live with and work with, that's part of the gift you give. Even if it's a new artist, have you heard this guy? You know, and play the song. Something that's new that you can talk about after the radio goes off. How do we know you from hearing the show? The highest praise you can ever get with any of the personalities on your air, and if you're on air, when total stranger says, you know, I don't really know you, but I feel I know you because I've heard you on the radio. And that's as good as it gets. That's the gold. Get more of that. What's the connection? And what's the unique journey? What's the thing I can get from you that I can't get from anyone else on the planet? And again, this is air check criteria. This is actually the real work I do. I sit in small rooms pretty much every day of the week with some broadcasters from somewhere on the planet, and we go through this list with audio. I'm going to be doing it tomorrow here in Ontario. I do this. This is my work. Is it conversational? Are you talking to each other, or are you talking to the listener? Does the listener feel engaged? Do you sound like you're reading? Audiences do not like to be read to. They don't want to hear someone reading stuff to them. They want to be talked with and communicated with. So if you have to read, I don't want to hear the read. Read it enough so that you know what it is you're going to say. Talk, communicate. Are you connecting? Is it authentic? Would you talk about this off air as easily as you would talk about it on air? Are you using radio speak? It's top of the hour, according to sources regarding officials. Hey, bottom of the hour coming up. We got to take a break. Nobody talks like that. If you wouldn't say it without the headphones on your head, don't say it on the air. As in life, on the air. Talk like a person. Kill radio speak. Kill it. Okay? Your goal is to get the audience to feel they're just with you and that they're not listening to a radio. Does it feel manufactured for air? Are you making it matter? Are there smooth transitions? Are there moments of humor? Did you laugh? Is there a journey that you're offering the audience can't get anywhere else on the planet except by listening to your station or checking your website? What were the visuals? What were the powerful moments that connected? Was anything new? What was authentic self-revelation, where I got to know the personalities and feel connected to them? What was personal without going private? And the secret of life on that is I is boring. The number one complaint about personality radio and personality morning shows is that guy talks all about himself, he's boring. But the minute you turn it around, instead of my kid, my car, my journey, blah, blah, it becomes, you know, when you got the kid in the car and the car starts making that funny noise and you're wondering, can you get him to school on time or do you have to make a stop? And suddenly there's the muffler store over there and you just took the car in a week ago. They guarantee their work. You brought it back. They popped the hood, tightened a screw. You went on your way. That's Midas Muffler. They guarantee their work and you got your kid to school on time. That's different than me and my. Why is it Christmas morning your kid would prefer to play with the box? You know, it's not my kid. The minute you turn it around, you can go personal without going private, and you will be amazed at what happens on air. Here's how it looks in research. That station got better, or that guy got better. I don't know what they're doing, but they got better. Or we only used to listen in the car. Now we have it on in the kitchen. You start seeing that when people work this way. It's quiet. They don't know what's going on, but they feel a change. They feel that it is different. Did anything go too long? Here's the money shot. Can you get a listener to stay and listen to something they weren't interested in 1 minute ago because of the way you're telling it? And that is talent. That's what talent is. They can get you to care about a thing you didn't care about 1 minute ago. Look for people who can do that. A lot of talk about what makes a successful entity of any kind, including a radio station: product, permanence, promotion. Do something and do it really well. Create the content. Do it consistently over time and let people know where they can find it. And once you do that, it is going to work. This is how you can get in touch with me. And we passed out these cards, which are the powerful radio principles. And again, if you didn't get one and you would like one, we have extra. And also, if anybody would like the air check criteria, I'm happy to email it to you. And of course, it's all in the book. But I wanted to leave some time to have some questions and make this an interactive session. So if people have questions, if there's anything that's going on specifically at your station that perhaps, I never know if I have answers, but I certainly might have ideas because I work with so many different radio stations around the world and TV stations, and now we're working with film. You know, it's just possible that I've encountered the thing you're going through somewhere else or might have ideas. So if there are any questions or comments, I'd be very happy to answer them.
Val, one thing I'm really interested in is today's air checks. When people are sending in their air checks in hope of getting a job,
Yeah.
what would be your recommendations for something that cuts through and
Yeah.
sells the personality?
The first thing I look for when I'm listening to a piece of audio, and I'm sure it's the first thing we all do, we're just so shallow. How does the person sound, right? It's like if you're looking at a picture, how does the person look, right? We're human, we're shallow that way. So the very first thing you listen to is the tone or the quality of the voice. But then, 2 seconds later, what are they saying? Are they making you laugh? Do they engage you or intrigue you? Do they sound average? Do they cut through? Are they observing life and filtering what they see through their own creative process and putting it back out in an original way? Do I feel I know the person or that I would like to know the person from hearing this piece of audio? Likability is something core. There's a lot of people who are smart and funny and brilliant, but they might not be so nice or they might not be likable. And these are not people who are going to be able to carry an audience 5 days a week for hours and hours at a time. So my first criteria is, would you take a car journey with this person and have a great time for 5 hours? Would you get in a car and drive up to Thunder Bay with this human being in the car with you and have a great time? Could you go from substantive topics to frivolous topics and everything in between? Could you laugh and cry? Is this a person you want to keep you company if you're alone? These are things I look at. The next thing I look at is this person fun, unique? You know, we have a list of 13 traits that we look for with criteria. And smart and funny and unique and great storyteller. One of the questions I always ask is, can you tell me a story or a joke 3 different times, 3 different ways? Because quite frankly, over time at a radio station, the material might not change and you're going to have to keep doing it over and over. Can you keep it interesting over time? Can you tell a story from different angles and different perspectives? If you have that ability, I'm going to look at you very seriously. So those are just some of the things that we look at when we hire. Yeah, Dave.
So Val, when you're doing air checks with talent, how does your approach change with somebody who's been doing it for 6 months versus somebody who's been doing it for 20 years?
Yeah, and this is a really good question. I'm often called in to work with, the dean of broadcasting who's been doing it forever because they've brought in 5 other people and he just won't listen to anybody else. And the bottom line is, when you work with people who have perfected their art, and then the world has changed. It's almost like they perfected ballet dancing for 20 years, and now we're jazz dancing. The attention span is different, the authority thing is different, the intimacy is different. The whole landscape has changed. So I've never met the broadcaster that doesn't want a bigger audience, and that's the carrot. Would you like more listeners? Would you like to have more impact? Would you like more people to listen to what you have to say? I will never touch what's inside the frame. I will never touch your content. That's your art, and if I take the paintbrush out of the hand of the artist, I'm doing a bad job for you. But what I will do is teach you how to reframe this so that it will engage more powerfully. And if you would like to do this, I will offer it to you. Nobody can make you change. You have to want to do it. I work in 3 phases, and a lot of the people in the room I've worked with understand this, and we've done this. The first one is need for change. Why do we have to work differently? The second one is how other people have changed. And the third one is taking your work and how you can change. And it's really a 3-part process. But people of good faith want to do their best work. They want to be better. They want to grow. It's just hard. Change is hard. One of the brain scientists I worked with came up with it takes 1,000 times of repeated behavior before a human being can rewire his or her brain to really change. So you can change your action immediately. Dave, if I say to you, okay, you've got to put the toilet seat down, you can do that right away, but to make it wrong not to do it is going to take 1,000 times. Or let's say you want to go jogging, you want to run every morning. You've got to run 1,000 times before it feels wrong not to put on those shoes in the morning and get out there. That's how long it takes people. Repetition, A is for apple, A is for apple, A is for apple. This is how humans learn and change, and it's hard. Here's the curse of our business. Because everyone can talk, everybody thinks it's easy. And it's hard, hard, hard work. It's hard. People think the same of acting. Oh, how hard can it be? He's just being himself. And then you see him in another movie and go, holy crap, that's really amazing. Turned into a different person. This is hard, and it takes skill, training, experience, and talent. It takes talent. And I think as an industry, pardon? Well, and again, podcasters sometimes, a baby has to fall, a 2-year-old. How many people here have raised children in the room? You watched your 2-year-old fall about 10,000 times before they figured out and picked themselves up. But they got a little better each time, right? Each time they did it, they figured out how to do it a little better, and ultimately they got up and walked. And with podcasting, what I'm finding now is I'll be hired by let's say a podcasting group. There are 10 people, they all do podcasts. And they all think they know what they're doing, and they all feel very confident. And then when they have 50 clicks and they don't understand why they're not growing audience, then I'll get another call. And then maybe 2 years later, I'll get another call and they go, okay, now I'm really ready to do the work you were talking about. It's like going on a diet, I need to lose 20 pounds, but you know what? I'd really like to have a piece of that cheesecake, so guess what? I'm probably not gonna be losing 20 pounds. That's how it goes, right? So the bottom line is, are you ready? Did that click happen where you're ready to make the change? When you put down the cigarette, when you start the diet, it's that moment. And when we ask audiences to pay attention to what we're saying, it's a big honor. And when we ask an on-air personality or a podcaster to change, it's a big ask. It's a really big ask, and it's hard. It just sounds easy and looks easy. The powerful radio material of tell the truth, make it matter, never be boring is really easy. But so is you want to stop smoking, put down the cigarette. You want to lose weight, eat less, exercise more. These are hard things. Changing humans is hard. So again, honor the process. And my mantra is try. And the beauty of a podcast is you can go back and make it perfect. You know, Sheryl Sandberg from Facebook says done is better than perfect. And I always say, yeah, unless you're podcasting. And then perfect is better than done because it's going to live forever. But on air, anything goes. And if you make a mistake today on the radio, you have tomorrow to correct it and do it differently. And that's the beauty of it. And at the end of 1,000 times, you will have made the change. And that's how humans change. And this is important for managers to understand when you're asking for change. It's important if you're managing yourself to understand the change. And if you're expecting change from others, it's important to understand. We're not in radio. We're in the struggle to be human and help each other get through another day of life. That's the job. It has nothing to do with radio. Radio's the delivery system. TV's the delivery system. You're in the life business, the human being business, the get through the day business, the try to have some joy in a tough world business. That's the business you're actually in. It has nothing to do with radio. That's why my books are around the world. Nothing to do with radio. It has to do with how to be human and communicate that and tell your stories. More questions?
Hi, Valerie. Jennifer from Loyalist College, teach in the radio program there. We actually use your book in our curriculum.
Thank you.
And we're just about to touch on chapter 17, storytelling. My biggest struggle with these emerging broadcasters, a lot of them want to be talent, is perspective. I get to that point in the book where finding angles, a lot of it has to do with age and life experience, 18, 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds. How do I teach perspective? How do you teach angles? And I do my best. Angles aren't obvious to a young adult, right? It comes with life experience. So, you know, and from my experience working in radio too, it came with some talent that have been in the business 15 years.
Okay, the number one thing is asking questions. The way you learn is curiosity and asking questions. And so when you're working with young people, there's like a phase, like, do you remember being 21 and you knew everything? And then you turn 30 and you went, oh my God, I know nothing. You know, it's like depending on when you get them, what phase they are in, what life stage the students that you're working with are in. I worked with a group of very young people. They were doing a children's radio program. And first of all, we had to find kids who had life experience. And the first kid we interviewed, 8, 9 years old, I'm too little. I haven't really had any life experiences yet. You know, when I'm older, I'm looking forward to having life experiences. Third kid in, he had been a twin, but his brother had drowned. His mother was suffering from cancer. His dad worked 2 jobs and was never home. He liked to walk by the river and he wrote poetry and he wanted to be a songwriter. And he had a puppy, and his puppy he told all his secrets to. But he didn't have any life experiences. Okay, so they all have it. And it's about looking, we have an exercise, you know, like these prisms that you can hold up to the light and turn different ways. Tell the story from the perspective, you know, I'll never forget when David Letterman first did his talk show, they used to do a segment where they would tell the story from the perspective of the dog. They would do you guys remember that? They would put the camera down at the dog's level and they would have the dog's view of the story. And that was such a great teaching tool of just look at it from a completely other perspective. You know, if you go into a park, what does the world look like from that old lady who's sitting by herself feeding the birds? What does the park look like to the kid who just got told he had to sit out on the soccer team because he hurt his knee and he really knew he could help win the game, but now he can't play? What does the park look like to somebody who is picking up garbage in the park as part of a punishment that they need to do to serve the city? What does the park look like to somebody who wanted to have their birthday party there, except now it's going to rain and they have to go in the house and it's not going to be as fun? Tell me, put them anywhere and have them start looking at the world from different perspectives. And that's how you do it, okay? That's how you do it. More questions? How are we doing on time?
Val.
Time to stop?
Wait,
Okay.
Val,
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Sorry. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for coming.
You know me, Mike Van Dixon from
Yes, of course. My eyes are being blared with a bright spotlight. So my first thought was that guy looks a lot like Mike Ben Dixon, but I could, you know, I don't want to risk it here. Yeah.
I have a great question.
Yeah.
Which, well, I think it's great. I think a lot of what you talk about is fantastic. The issue that I have, and I think a lot of program directors may have, is Hosts will do it for a month, and then they kind of fall off the wagon.
Yeah.
So how do you keep them on the wagon is one thing. And then the other thing is, how do you come up with like fresh new ways of getting them back on the wagon?
Okay, all right. Mike, thank you for asking these questions. Do I have like 2 minutes to just quickly? Okay, getting 2 minutes.
Take as long as you want.
Question number one. Question number one for Mike. It is very emotionally draining to air check your talent. When I was a program director, I did it on Wednesdays because I had a day to ramp up and a day to recover before the end of the week. I mean, it's exhausting. You're exhausted, they're revved up, but you should be exhausted, and that means you're doing it right when you are laid flat after you do an air check session. Each air check session should end with agreed upon achievable goals. And I actually make the talent I work with and the producers sign a paper physically with a pen that they agree to we have a contract of the agreed upon achievable goals. And within 2 weeks, we set a time and a date, even if it's 5 minutes, where they have to bring me a piece of audio and play for me demonstrated agreed upon achievable goals. So I need to hear it. And I have been in airports, I have been standing in the ladies' room listening on my cell phone to people playing me their agreed upon achievable goals, but I want to hear it. Follow through is the only way they can keep it going, is if you, the boss, follow up with them and show them how important it is. Reward them hugely when they do something right. Do not, praise publicly and criticize privately. Never criticize your group, any one of your talent in front of anybody else. Always do it in private. Because what happens is, it doesn't take much to shut down creative people. All they have to do is hear no a few times, and they shut down. They'll do what you say, but not with their heart and soul. And these are artists, you need their heart and soul. So we need to build them up and value them. Value what they do. Recognize it's hard. They may seem like they're staring into space, but they may be thinking and working, and let them have their white space that they need. One of the things that I hear all the time from bosses is, my talent is never around. I said, wait a minute, getting the tire changed in his car could be show prep for something great tomorrow, you don't know. So trust your talent and set the bar high, and when they hit it, reward them and set the bar higher, okay? And I think that's really important. And you should be exhausted after an air check. If you do it right, you're laid out, they're energized, they're ready to, they've got rocket fuel, and you're ready for a nap, and that is as it should be, okay? And that's really it. Did I answer it?
Yeah.
Okay. And with that, I'd like to say thank you very much for your time and today.